Good afternoon and welcome back to Valley News Now. Adam Shalafu with Doug Leier. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Adam. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Hunting season continues. Talking about that today. We're talking about some safety tips, talking about deer hunting numbers, talking about some ducks, talking about some geese, talking about winter's coming, so a lot to get to today.
Yeah, let's do it. All
right, we'll jump right into it. So first thing we got to address is, I know obviously we're on the other side of the border here, but there's a tragic accident in Minnesota, deer hunting, and let's talk about that.
No, and you're absolutely right, is because when it comes to hunting safety and gun safety, it doesn't know any boundaries. It doesn't matter if it's the Red River, it doesn't matter if it's South Dakota, Minnesota, or North Dakota, and just like a lot of other things in life, it's kind of a community. You know, it's kind of a fellowship of hunters, and the unfortunate tragedy that took place in Minnesota and some of the other accidents are a real firm reminder that while it is recreation and it is fun, you have to put safety right at the top of the list, and it has to be there every day, every time, every minute, and every hour. If we're going to go through a list of hunting safety reminders, we start off with guns, and gun safety begins and ends with treat every gun as if it were loaded. Whether you're in the field, whether you're getting into the truck, whether you're home, getting back into the house, whatever it might be, the garage, treat every gun as if it were loaded. Never point your gun at something you do not intend to shoot. Have muzzle control. Know the direction that if you are in the field and you trip and you fall, if you stumble getting out of a pickup or make sure that you have control of the muzzle. Make sure that it's pointed down in a safe direction, so if something should happen, that muzzle is not going towards anyone or anything else. Make sure that before you squeeze your trigger, you know your target. Know exactly what you are going to be shooting at, and then if you should miss, know what's beyond your target. Is there a vehicle? Is there a house? Is there somebody else from your hunting party? So when it comes to hunting safety and gun safety, there is what's called the 10 Commandments of hunting safety, and you could sit down with a list and you could study that list and you could memorize that list. What we stress to hunters all the time is it begins with you, and it's for everybody else that is out there. The hunting safety reminders, unfortunately what we run into is, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, it's fun. Hunting is getting outdoors, it's getting back together with friends and family. So sometimes we get, I want to say, a little bit complacent. Maybe we've been hunting a long time and we know the rules, we know the gun safety, but you just get a little bit lax. And we want to try to really reiterate to all hunters, we're talking right now, there could be a situation taking place someplace else in North Dakota, Minnesota, or South Dakota, and we want to make sure, whether it's deer hunting, duck hunting, goose hunting, pheasant hunting, that everybody stays safe, Adam.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the 10 Commandments. Do you happen to know those?
I don't. You know what I mean? I couldn't run right down the list of every single one of them, because and that's one of the things about the 10 Commandments of hunting safety, is that you can memorize the list, but it doesn't do you any good unless you put that into practice. So it's like everything else in life. You can memorize things, but it's when it becomes part of your DNA. It becomes what you do. Same thing with driving safety. Can you go back to driver's ed and remember all the points that were made? No, but you put it in practice, and you make sure that you're doing that, and you turn that into a habit.
Well, here we go. We found him right here, Hunter Ed. And this is a good thing to reference, definitely. So number one, as you said, always control your muzzle of your firearm. Number two, keep your finger off the trigger until ready to fire. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded. You said that one as well. Know your target, what's beyond. You said that too.
So I'm doing pretty good.
You're doing pretty good.
I'm doing okay. I'm going to pass.
Check your barrel and ammunition. I believe our GM brought that up in the morning meeting, Ike Walker. Shout out to Ike for getting that one. Unload your firearms not in use. I know you said that just about every time we've ever brought anything up. That's another thing he brought up in the meeting as well. Point a handgun only at something you intend to shoot. You said that. So you pretty much did say all of them. Don't run, jump, or climb with a loaded firearm. Store handguns and ammunition separately and safely. Avoid alcoholic beverages before and during shooting. That's a good one too.
Yeah, so and again, you could take that, and we went down the list from 1 to 10. You could take number 10 and make it number 1. You could take number 2 and make it number. They're all equally as important.
Yeah.
And what's not on a list, what's not on any list is it can happen to you.
Yeah.
And you know, we've referenced this before. Here's the thing, we've talked safety. And this isn't something new for Adam and Doug. We've talked about hunter safety, and one of the challenges and one of the struggles that we have is it's not. I mean, if we sat down and we did a live video on how to shoot the biggest buck and how to find the most pheasants and catch the biggest walleye, people are like, wow, that's really cool. But when it comes to safety, people just get kind of numb to it.
Yeah.
It's not as much fun to talk about safety. But as we've referenced before, it can happen to you, and we want to make sure that every time somebody goes out hunting, that they make sure it's the same thing. I think we mentioned one time about like putting on your seatbelt when you go when you drive, and you still hear that. I hear that on your news where there was a crash that took place and a victim wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I think, man, in this world, how aren't people wearing a seatbelt? In this world of all the safety equipment and all the safety reminders that we have, we just really want to make sure that we stress to people that it can happen to you, and we don't want it to happen to anyone. For people that don't hunt, these unfortunate tragedies, they make headlines. They always have, and they always will. But if you get beyond the emotion of it, one accident is one too many.
Yeah.
In North Dakota, in checking with our enforcement division, throughout the entire hunting season, we start back in August with early Canada goose season and go into dove season and duck season and goose and pheasant and deer. We've had 2 hunting accidents, neither of them serious. We went through the opening weekend of deer season in North Dakota with, maybe somewhere around 60,000 hunters in the field, and we did not have an accident that was reported that we know of. So if you want to look at it statistically, hunting is still very, very safe statistically. The reality is, though, when a hunting accident does take place, it makes headlines.
Absolutely, and it's going to be one of those things where it is going to, just by default, be a lot more serious.
Yeah.
One of the things you brought up there is just, the proactive measures. And I remember 2 stories come to mind, as I've spoken about before. Big bicycle guy.
Yeah.
And so in college, I had a friend, and she would ride her bike to and from campus, and I would say, hey, wear your helmet, wear your helmet. Why don't you have a helmet? Why don't you have a helmet? And she had very pretty hair, and everything was fine. And it was like, for the 3 years we went to school together, every day she's riding her bike, unless it's the winter or whatever, and then but she wouldn't wear the helmet. One day, she gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
It wasn't her fault, but then she's getting all this dental stuff done.
Yeah.
She obviously hurt her head. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of like, you never want to be like, hey, I told you so, but as the friend there in that situation, I just am like, I really wish you would have listened to me.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm trying to, but it's just like we need to have the approach where, like you said, it can happen to you. And whether it's irresponsible bike move in this situation or not, like, you're not the only one involved.
Right.
There's other people.
Right.
And so even if you're comfortable with what you can do to mitigate danger, you need to be prepared to mitigate the danger of others, and that requires being proactive. Another time, I'm riding my bike, and so I'm going, and I used to live right on the Missouri River in Montana.
Okay.
And so I had this unbelievably beautiful bike ride to work, and but right by the oil refinery, there was this steep hill, and it was under some construction, and there was just a ton of gravel on this hill. Mm-hmm. And so I hit the turn. I'm coming at it just a little too quick, and as it turned out, my front wheel wasn't fully locked. Wheel goes flying off. I go flying off. I land on my head and my shoulder. I was wearing my helmet.
Yeah.
And so I cut my finger.
Yep.
I had a scrape in my shoulder. I dusted myself off, and I got to work.
Yeah.
I said, hey, you got a Band-Aid for your boy? They said, yes, we do. I put it on, and I drove like 2 hours to do my story on the pole vaulter.
Right.
And you can go on with your day.
Right.
But it's like, you don't, if I didn't have the helmet on, am I even here today? I don't know. You can't land on your head. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of one of those things where I know it was the main topic last week.
Right.
But it's so important to get that stuff down. It can happen to you. Don't let it.
Like your friend on the bicycle, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, well, today I might wipe out on my bike. Today somebody else might crash into me. That's not how, that's not how we're wired. We tend to think that, today, the end of today is going to be just, I'm not jinxing anything, but I drive over the Red River Bridge and I just think of, how many thousands of vehicle traffic go across that Red River Bridge, and you hear about a crash and you hear about a crash. And for that person, it's very significant. It can be life-changing. And for everybody else, oh, it's just another Thursday. That's what we really fight against, is that it can't happen to me, it's not going to happen to me mentality. And you have to, like you said, you have to put your bike helmet on every single time.
Every single time.
Football players don't go out without a helmet on.
No.
I mean, they don't have to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, and again, we could talk for hours on this, and I don't know how we change that mindset. I don't know what the magic word is, or how to do that, but the bottom line is, like your friend, you don't want to say, oh, man, I wish you would have been wearing a helmet. We want to do that right now and just say, do it. Wear the blaze orange vest. Wear the blaze orange hat. Before you squeeze that trigger, here's another one. It's kind of in the 10 Commandments, but before you squeeze that trigger, just pause a second. We talked about buck fever last week, and you see this deer and go, wow, this is the biggest deer I've ever seen. And then just stop and breathe. And before you squeeze that trigger, realize that once you squeeze the trigger, there's no return.
Yeah.
There's no mulligan. So, and again, to reiterate, you hear about the tragedies that take place, and I equate it, like, if there was one deer left in the world and somebody's daughter hit it coming home from a volleyball game tonight, they'd be like, oh man, I wish there weren't any deer. So all it takes is one, and hunting is very safe. You look at statistics in terms of injuries, it's safer than football. It's safer than a lot of other recreational activities that are out there. But if you're the one that's involved in it, if you're the one that's calling 911 and going to the ER, it doesn't matter how safe it is. It's life-changing for that individual and all the people that they love. And we just, going back to, we don't want people, you can't just sit at home in the basement. You can't just live your life in fear, but you have to be intentional and you have to make smart choices. And that's kind of what we're trying to say, is get out there, enjoy the great outdoors, go for a walk, reconnect with family, put on the blaze orange hat, put on the blaze orange vest, and make sure that you take to heart the 10 Commandments of hunting and hunting safety.
Excellent. And just one more recap of those. Always control the muzzle of your firearm. Keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to fire. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Keep it unloaded until ready to fire. Know your target, what is beyond it. Check your barrel and ammunition. Unload firearms when not in use. Point the handgun only at something you intend to shoot. Don't run, jump, or climb with a loaded firearm. Store handguns and ammunition separately and safely. Avoid alcoholic beverages before and during shooting. Had to tackle that one.
Yeah.
And so we got through. I want to say, we have so many fun conversations on this desk, on this segment together. We had to get through that not so fun one.
Yep.
But now let's get on to some of the other things. Deer season has started.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe the number's not doing so great, but are they going to get better?
I think it might get better, and it's kind of a couple different ways to look at it. So we opened up the deer season in North Dakota on Friday. Minnesota's opened up on Saturday. And quite frankly, for deer hunters, they would like a little bit of the weather that might be coming next week, a little bit of snow, maybe a little colder temperatures, maybe a little. It was really nice to get outdoors. Maybe not the most conducive, the best weather for deer hunters. The deer tend to move a little bit more when it's colder and they have to feed. So it may get better. I'm hoping it gets better. But the other flip side of it is, every day, every hour, we've got a few less deer out there. The hunters are out there, and the deer population continues to shrink as every hunter fills a tag. So you lose a little bit of the competition from the other hunters, but you also lose some of that population. So the deer hunting season in North Dakota goes through 10 more days. Next Sunday is when the deer season in North Dakota wraps up. And I think I think the reports might come in a little bit better because there's a lot of people that might just, might live in Fargo and Grand Forks, and you grew up in Dickinson or in Stanley, and you go back there for the opening weekend, and then that's it. That's all you're hunting. There's a lot of hardcore hunters that after the opening weekend, they may take Thursday, Friday off this week, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week to really kind of hit it hard. So I think maybe for the hunters that still have a tag, they haven't filled a tag, maybe the best is yet to come. And we're optimistic that as the season wraps up next Sunday, that I think it's gonna end up being pretty good. I mean, the deer numbers that we had aren't necessarily where we want them to be, but for the guys and the gals that drew the tag, I think they should have a chance. If you put in the time, we look back statistically, a lot of times hunters put in 4 or 5 days, to fill that tag. So I think if hunters put in the hard work, get out and walk, stay really persistent, I think they got a good chance at finding a deer and filling that deer tag out.
And I know obviously you don't have anything right in front of you.
Right.
Off the top of your head, do you know anything about what those numbers were? What's good numbers?
Yeah. So in North Dakota, we don't do our surveys until after the archery season actually wraps up. We do all of our deer. I know Minnesota has some electronic, and you can track things online. We do all our surveys after the archery season closes in January. When we look back in past years, our success rate is around 55%. It's really high. If we hit 65%, that's pretty high. Last year it was 55%. So don't know exactly what it is right now for North Dakota, but I think when the dust settles or the snow settles and the season's over with, I'm going to think it's probably going to be in that 60% range. And which when you see a number, whether it's a Minnesota number or a North Dakota number, you have to realize that that's a statistical valuation of success. If you go out and hunt every single day, 16 and a half days in North Dakota, and you get to the last day at the last hour, and you see that deer and you go, that one's just not quite big enough. I'm going to let that one grow. I'm going to let that one grow for next year. Well, you don't fill your tag, so statistically you're a 0, but in your mind, you could have shot that deer. You just chose not to. So in your mind, it's success. In numerical value, it's unsuccessful. So there's a lot of things. On the flip side, there can be somebody that hunts 3 days, they shoot a small doe, and they go, that's the only thing I could find. I'm just going to shoot it and fill that tag. They fill the tag. It shows success, but in their mind, they're like, I was really hoping for a bigger doe or a bigger buck, but I took whatever I could get. So sometimes, if you look at statistics long enough, you can get a headache, and we don't need to do that right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like I always think about with stats, like the NFL, they're like, this guy hasn't missed a field goal since 1942, and then he's going to miss it.
Yeah, or all of his field goals have been from inside 45 yards. This guy's perfect. Well, they haven't tried a 65-yarder, So, I mean, that's the reality.
He stubbed his toe this morning. You don't know that.
We don't know that.
You don't know that.
Right.
They're not going to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, you could, I don't know. I'm not going to, bring up Caleb Williams, but, you could have a quarterback. Or, I suffered through my years with Kirk Cousins. All these great ratings, all these great quarterback ratings. Like, did you win the big game? Did you win the big game? So statistics, sometimes you have to take them for what they are and dig a little bit deeper. And it's no different. It's no different with deer hunting, Adam.
Very good. Now, let's say you get one. We want to check. We want to check for chronic wasting disease. We've talked about it a few times.
Yeah. Well, so chronic wasting disease is always fatal. And we've talked a lot about it. And one of the things, so we request the help of hunters to submit deer samples for chronic wasting disease. We've got drop site locations here in Fargo. We've got them in Grand Forks. We've got them all over the state, Fargo, Devils Lake, Jamestown. And you can find the drop site locations on the Game and Fish Department website. Or what I did was you can go online.
It looks like you got some props.
Yeah, and you can request a self-sample. And that's what I did. This came to me, to my house, and it comes right here with a shiny little bag, and it's got all of the instructions.
Okay.
Right within that, your instructions on what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it. You get this shiny little bag here.
That is a shiny bag.
It's a very shiny bag. And I'm doing the exact same thing. So I probably should have read the directions, but I'm a man. So sometimes I might, and I'm also a man where I might, should I break out my knife and open this up? There it is. Okay.
There we go.
It's not even sealed. That's the problem with the man. You're thinking you got to tear it open or cut it open. So it's not actually sealed, but so it comes in this shiny little bag, and it's got feel It's got the ice right in there for
Oh,
it.
wow. This is very cold.
So you can take the lymph nodes out.
You dropped your hype wipe.
Yeah, drop my hype wipe. So it's got everything in here.
Okay.
So if you want to get your deer tested for chronic wasting disease, you can go on the Game and Fish Department website, and you can request a self-sample kit.
Okay.
And it takes about 5 days. It'll come in the mail. It's got the instructions on there. You put the lymph nodes in the package, and it's postage paid. The postage is paid right there for you.
Okay.
You put that back in the mail, and in about a month, you'll get the results of whether your deer tested positive for chronic wasting disease. And again, it's easy to drop off a deer head at our drop site locations if you'd like to. But if you live in a rural area and you don't feel like trying to find a spot to drop it off, you can request a self-sample kit. It'll come with a. I was kind of impressed.
It's very cold.
It's very cold.
Yeah.
But one of the things on chronic wasting disease, so there's nothing that shows in research that it can be transmitted to humans via consumption. But what we are finding more and more people is they want to find out if the deer that they're making sausage out of, if they're going to make deer jerky out of, that their deer doesn't have chronic wasting disease, so they're getting it tested. We're relying on help from the hunters, dropping off those deer heads, submitting the self-sample kits to find out where is chronic wasting disease. As it stands right now, most of our chronic wasting disease for North Dakota have been in like the eastern 2/3 of North Dakota.
Okay.
There's different spots around Minnesota that have chronic wasting disease, and we just need the help of hunters to better track and understand where it is and where it's not. And these self-sample kits are just one way that we can make things a little bit easier for the hunters.
Very good. We've been talking about winter a little bit, just kind of dancing around the subject.
Yeah,
a
it's
little bit.
getting there.
And so it is coming, and we'll talk a little bit more about other specifics. But one thing that is really good is, with winter comes some of that migration. We're talking about deer and everything season.
Yeah.
But ducks and gooses.
Man, last weekend when our deer season opened up, I had some of the best reports from ducks and geese moving into North Dakota and through North Dakota, and we kind of called it. We kind of called it here,
Yeah,
so
you did.
that might happen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So if you didn't get a deer tag, or if you filled your deer tag, our duck and goose migration is going strong right now.
Okay.
From basically, a lot of it comes through, kind of like central North Dakota if you want to find the best of it, but you can find great duck and goose hunting in southeastern North Dakota and central North Dakota. And really the key is, nice thing is as gas has come down, it's even cheaper now, and get out there and do some scouting. Go out for a drive, and you can drive out into the middle of nowhere, and if you don't see the ducks and geese, you can stop and get out, you can look, you can listen,
Yeah.
and sometimes you can hear where they're at. And so it's really going to be kind of another fun weekend for the people that love the outdoors. Even if you don't hunt, gosh, we didn't mention fishing yet, but go fish. Go
Yeah,
fish. Go
always,
fish.
Always a good time.
Great reports from fish coming in. If you just love to go like bird watching and watchable wildlife, the migration is going on. So get out there, grab your binoculars, grab a camera,
Yeah.
and get out there and check it all out.
Awesome. The duck.
Yeah.
It's like I got three
Yep. You're the duck
favorite
man.
animals.
You're the duck man.
That's
I
up
see
there.
the deer. You got the deer tie on.
I did the deer tie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some proper hunter safety. Only
Yeah.
pointing the rifle at what you want.
Yep.
For your target, and you got the deer. So that's we appreciate you.
People see the.
Appreciate with the safety message, Adam.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get a proper zoom, just
For
for
news
fun.
anchors, too.
Just for fun.
So I got the blaze orange over here. He's got the deer there, and
All
everything's
right.
safe.
So we'll do the. Yeah. Oh. There we
Got it.
go.
There you go.
There we go.
Yep.
I bought this.
How many ties do you have? Have you
I
counted?
have not counted.
Yeah.
I have not
Are you
counted.
afraid to count?
I think I have enough.
No. You don't.
I could always use more. But yeah, I need a Chicago Bulls tie. I have a DePaul Blue Demons tie.
You don't have a Chicago Bulls?
I don't have a Chicago Bulls tie.
Wow.
He used to have a really cool Batman tie. I'd like to re-up on that.
Also,
Also,
used to. What happened to it?
I think I was 6 years old.
Oh.
And I just outgrew it at some point.
You had ties when you're 6 years old?
I was a very fashionable young man. Well, occasionally there might be a fancy thing, church or something.
Right,
I
but
don't
that's
know.
impressive.
Most
of us kids had like holes in our knees, and you were wearing a tie.
Well, I mean, some days I wasn't.
Okay.
Some days I was wearing my homemade Steve Kerr jersey, which I made out of a white shirt and a red Sharpie. Wore that to kindergarten.
Why not?
Yeah, and everyone's like, hey, Pokemon. What's a Pokemon? What's Pokemon's three-point field goal
That's
percentage?
right.
Because I
That's
bet
right.
it's not as high as Steve Kerr's.
That's right.
Take that, Pikachu. But, you know, to each their own.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll see. You
Okay.
know, the tie numbers, I'd like them to go up
Yeah.
this Christmas. But it's not the thing. You don't ask for
You
a
just
tie
did.
either.
You just
know?
did.
Oh, we'll see.
You just did the ask.
We'll see.
Yep.
But yeah, you know, so winter, anything else that we want to consider when we talk about the season coming? Because it sounds like that first snowfall could be coming to the area pretty soon here.
And if you're one of those guys or gals that has the opportunity to grab a day of vacation when the snow starts coming through, that is typically some of the best duck and goose hunting. That's some great pheasant hunting. You get that white blanket on the ground. You can see the roosters. It moves the deer around. So, you know, keep your eyes and ears open for your weather forecasts, and that could be tying right into a great hunting forecast.
Love that.
The
Love
worse
that.
the weather, the better the hunt.
Heard it here first,
My fault.
folks. And he's been calling it.
So
he called
far.
it last weekend. He might call it again. And so when we do get that snow, great time. And it's just interesting to hear the behavioral changes that can influence the
For sure.
create a better hunt.
We'll be heading to the grocery store.
Okay.
The deer and the pheasants will be heading to the field to get a little food.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to know. Good to know. Doug, my friend, thank you.
You bet. You're welcome. Take
Always
care.
a pleasure. And that has been The Great Outdoors with Doug. I'm Adam. He's Doug. It's Great Outdoors. Valley News Now. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.